All right, he is one man at the very top of this ongoing Russia collusion witch hunt. Now, after Attorney General Jeff Sessions recused himself from all things Russia, well, the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, assumed the responsibility. Now, this despite having massive conflicts of interest. Remember, it was Rod Rosenstein who drafted a report detailing why James Comey should be fired. It was Rod Rosenstein who signed off on the third FISA renewal application, the fourth FISA warrant against Trump campaign associate Carter Page. And, of course, all of this, as the Nunes memo and the Grassley-Graham memo says, the bulk of information came from that phony Russian dossier that Hillary paid for, the dirty dossier with Russian lies. Now, for months, we have literally been shouting from a mountaintop, matter of fact, well over a year now, that this whole process is and has been corrupt. Nobody in this equation can be trusted tonight. And now we have confirmation. New York Times reporting today that during meetings with top DOJ, FBI officials, including Lisa Page and Andrew McCabe, who is a known liar, we know that a grand jury has been convened in his case, Rod Rosenstein actually planned to push a quote, according to the New York Times, secretly record the President of the United States in the White House to expose the chaos consuming the administration and discuss recruiting cabinet members to invoke the 25th Amendment so they would remove President Trump, your duly elected president, from office for, quote, being unfit. Now, this all allegedly took place during Rosenstein's second week on the job. This is right after President Trump fired Comey, based on Rod Rosenstein's recommendation in part. And by the way, under Article 2 of our Constitution, he didn't even have to like James Comey's shoes, and he could have fired him for that. And according to the Times, Rosenstein thought, quote, well, he might be able to persuade the Attorney General Jeff Sessions, General Kelly, then the Secretary of Homeland Security, now the White House Chief of Staff, to mount an effort to invoke the 25th Amendment. 2 weeks into the job, Rod Rosenstein wanted to wear a wire, secretly record a sitting president of the United States invoke the 25th Amendment. In other words, a silent coup against his boss by him, McCabe, others, all against a duly elected president. We are experiencing tonight a massive constitutional crisis, and frankly, this is designed to set up the president. I'll explain what this is about in a minute. Now, tonight, Rod Rosenstein, he is publicly denying this report, calling the story inaccurate, factually inaccurate. He wrote, quote, I never pursued or authorized recording the president. Any suggestion that I have ever advocated for the removal of the president is absolutely false. Given the numerous sources in this story, the New York Times remains adamant in their reporting. Two of their sources, by the way, we know one is Andrew McCabe and another is Lisa Page, although Lisa Page not on the 25th Amendment side of this. And we do know McCabe's a known liar. But we have other sources tonight telling Fox News that Rod Rosenstein's remarks were made sarcastically. But the New York Times, they are standing behind the story and the seriousness of Rod Rosenstein's remarks. Let's take a look.
This wasn't a flippant remark, and he was in fact very serious, and the circumstances in which it was described to me are different now than what's being put out, I guess, by the government. But it's important that your listeners understand something, that as I was pursuing this story for a very long time, people were reluctant to talk about it because of the gravity of the story, that there was concern that if it got out that, Rosenstein had wanted to actually, wear a wire, or had suggested Andy McCabe, the deputy director, the acting director at the time, wear a wire, that Rob might get fired. People were sincerely concerned about this, not because he made a flip remark, because of the seriousness surrounding the remark.
So Rod Rosenstein, well, the New York Times is standing by their story. Andrew McCabe is one of the sources. His lawyer admitted that today, and he is saying, a known liar now, that in fact Rod meant what he said. Now, we're going to have a lot more information from the New York Times report throughout the hour tonight. Now, before appointing Mueller to lead the special counsel investigation, Rosenstein floated another candidate, we find out from the New York Times. His name is James M. Cole. Well, that's problematic because Cole, while he was a deputy attorney general under Obama, conflict enough, he was also the private lawyer to Sid Vicious Blumenthal. That's Clinton's personal political hitman. And as you can see, neither Rod Rosenstein, Andrew McCabe, Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, James Comey, Bruce Orr is a friend of the president. That's why this country is in crisis tonight. Their bias is all obvious here. This has been corrupt from the beginning. Before the election, after the election, they wanted to take down Donald Trump. Now it's time tonight for the Attorney General to now do his job. Mr. Sessions, this is your Department of Justice. Under no circumstances, I have a message for the president tonight. Under zero circumstances should the president fire anybody. These actors tonight, and I have multiple sources confirming this and more information coming. They are hoping and praying that the president does just that. They're hoping he gets mad, that he gets sick and tired of it, and that they can turn this politically into their equivalent of a Friday night massacre. The president needs to know it is all a setup. He needs to know that regardless of whether he steps in or not, and I would argue he should definitely not, the deep state tonight is crumbling from within at this very hour. They're now turning against each other. It's the president's job and duty, of course, to remove all enemies from within. But, of course, Democratic Senator Chuckie Schumer is in meltdown mode. You would think they cared about the truth. You think they would care about fixing and rigging and attempting to rig elections and lying to the American people and propagandizing the American people and misinforming the American people and having real Russian information bought and paid for by one party to destroy another candidate, and that FISA court judges were all lied to. But Chuckie doesn't care about that at all. He cares about his friends in the deep state. And tonight he released a statement that proves just that. This story must not be used as a pretext for the corrupt purpose of firing the Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein in order to install an official who will allow the president to interfere with the special counsel's investigation. Generals Kelly, Mattis, and numerous other White House and cabinet officials have been reported to say critical things of the president without being fired. Hey, Chuck, none of them have talked about literally trying to set up a president and tape record a president and invoke the 25th Amendment, Chuck. Now, of course, we know what would happen if Rosenstein and others are fired by Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions actually that's his department. Jeff Sessions, where are you tonight? Solicitor General Noel Francisco would likely take over Rod Rosenstein's Russia duties. And he worked in the DOJ under President George W. Bush. He clerked for Antonin Scalia. More importantly, he doesn't have the baggage, the conflicts of interest, or apparently the anti-Trump bias that so many others have had from the beginning. But with that said, I don't know at this hour who to trust anymore in the FBI or the DOJ. Well, I do. The rank and file, the people that do their job in the field offices every day, I trust them. Those that are upset about this, the most corrupt, massive abuse of power in this country's history, I believe in them. They are as upset, rightly so, as we all are. And meanwhile, this story is now shining a new light on the president's decision Monday to declassify FISA documents, 302s, other important information related to the FBI, DOJ handling of this so-called Russia objective probe. Today, the president tweeted out, quote, I met with the DOJ concerning the declassification of various unredacted documents. They agreed to release them, but stated that so doing may have perceived negative impact on the Russia probe. Also, key allies. What allies? What countries? They called to ask not to release them. Therefore, the Inspector General has been asked to review these documents on an expedited basis. I believe he will move quickly on this and hopefully other things which he is looking at, meaning FISA. In the end, I can still always declassify it if it proves necessary. Speed is very important to me and to everyone. Other allies, there has been a lot of chatter. Do we have allied countries? We have a Fourth Amendment protections against unreasonable search and seizure, against using wiretapping against American citizens. Is it possible some of their friends in other countries might be thinking tonight that they're going to be exposed for doing the dirty work, sharing the information that they got that would otherwise be gotten illegally in this country with some of our deep state actors? It raises a lot of questions tonight. These documents the president requested Monday must be released, must be declassified immediately. This same routine has played out well over a year now, about 2 years, where you have the DOJ, deep state actors have done everything in their power, including lie that this will impact sources and methods when it doesn't, to prevent them from releasing the information that we, the American people, deserve to see. These actors know they will be exposed, their corruption, the serious misconduct. McCabe, Strzok, Page, and perhaps even James Comey himself. The DOJ has delayed the release of these important documents over again and again. They have defied congressional subpoenas, obstructed justice at this point, defied the oversight, constitutional authority of Congress. The president cannot let this go on any longer, because as we wait, the deep state is winning, and they're trying to set up traps even for the president himself. These documents must be made available to you, the American people. Where's Spartacus, Cory Booker, when we need him? We deserve full transparency for the American people. No more delaying, no more hiding, no more lying, no more obstructing. You, we, the people, deserve to know what these top, upper-level people in our government were doing to undermine the people's pick for president. The damning revelations today surrounding Rod Rosenstein, well, it's not the only time the deep state has been caught trying to sabotage President Trump. Far from it. Let's look at this timeline we put together. Let's start in 2015, the FBI opening a criminal investigation into Hillary Clinton. We know she violated the law, committed multiple felonies, mishandling top secret, classified special access program information on her private email server in a mom-and-pop shop bathroom. And in a very rare move, the FBI director, James Comey, he rips the case away from our honorable FBI field agents, the guys we trust. He took it in-house, politicized it himself, with, of course, the help of Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, and others. Then they put the fix in. Despite overwhelming evidence of guilt, they end up exonerating Hillary Clinton. Oh, they were writing that exoneration in May of 2016. They never interviewed her or 17 other key witnesses until July. And then remember, it was Strzok and Comey. They worked on the draft in May before the July exoneration. Well, they were changing it from the, gross negligence legal term to the more innocuous, just careless. Just like Sandy Berger goes, steals documents, puts them in his pants, his socks, frankly, on his backside, walks out and says, oh, I'm just being sloppy. Really? People put documents, private documents in their pants and they're sloppy? Meanwhile, the very same time, the Clinton campaign, along with the DNC, funneling money through a law firm. Oh, you mean it wasn't a legal expense? Then they hire Fusion GPS to do op research, who hired an ex-foreign spy. I thought they weren't supposed to influence our elections. His name is Christopher Steele, and the wife, of course, of a high-ranking DOJ official, Nellie Ohr, to put together a campaign op research document, a series of documents that then became known as the dossier, all against Donald Trump, filled with salacious lies and rumors, never verified, never corroborated. None of it. Neither Steele himself said, I don't know if any of this is true, maybe 50-50, in an interrogatory in Great Britain. That dossier was spread throughout the highest levels of our federal government, all these deep state actors, by Nellie Ohr's husband, who became the conduit for Christopher Steele, Bruce Ohr, the fourth highest ranking official at the DOJ. That dossier was leaked to the press. Why? To lie to you, the American people, and influence an election to help Hillary. Just kind of like what she did to Bernie. It was used as the basis of the FISA warrants against the Trump campaign associate Carter Page, signed off on by multiple officials, including Comey, including McCabe, including Yates and Rod Rosenstein himself. And after the election, the dossier was then used again as the basis, the fundamental basis for what we now know to be Mueller's witch hunt, or even briefed Mueller Deputy Andrew Weissman. This made its way right into special counsel Mueller's office. Andrew Weissman, Mueller's pit bull, he got the contents of that dossier, right from Hillary to Steele, from Russia, with love, to Robert Mueller's office, all in an effort to take down the president you elected. All right, we have a lot more throughout the show tonight, but we have other top breaking news tonight. Now, for a week, the Republicans, rightly so, they have tried to accommodate in every way imaginable Judge Kavanaugh's accuser, Professor Christine Ford, clearly one of her liberal lawyers, Deborah Katz, and Senator Dianne Feinstein are playing politics. And the sad thing is, this is such a serious accusation. It should be handled in a nonpartisan way. It should be pursued just for the sake of pursuing truth and justice. And as Susan Collins has said, and she is absolutely right, it's unfair what Dianne Feinstein and others have been doing. I have sources tonight telling me that Professor Ford's attorney keep moving the bar all over the place. At this hour, no deal has been struck with Professor Ford's attorney to testify. Senator Grassley finally has had to extend yet again the deadline. Now it's 10 p.m. tonight. And Senator Grassley released a statement earlier. This is what it reads, quote, despite the fact that the July 30th letter remains hidden, my committee has been investigating the allegations and has heard from multiple witnesses since Sunday. Ms. Katz has discussed Dr. Ford's allegations in numerous media interviews and said on TV Monday morning that Dr. Ford wants to share her account with the Senate Judiciary Committee. All right, it's Friday night. Nothing's been agreed to, despite our extensive efforts to make testimony possible. I'm extending the deadline for response yet again to 10 o'clock this evening. I'm providing a notice of a vote to occur Monday in the event that Dr. Ford's attorney doesn't respond or Dr. Ford decides not to testify. In the event we can come to a reasonable resolution, as I have been seeking all week, then I will postpone the committee vote to accommodate her testimony. We cannot continue to delay. Senator Grassley has been gracious, rightly so, and accommodating in multiple ways. If her lawyers keep moving the goalposts and they don't give answers and they keep making new demands and they don't show up, what are lawmakers to do? And by the way, isn't it really unfair for the accuser to be heard literally after the accused? No, I think the accuser should have the right to respond to the accusations that are made. Senators Grassley and Graham said they will not concede that point. And also tonight, my sources are telling me that the conclusion of many Republican lawmakers is that Professor Ford's liberal attorney, this is not in any way, I want Professor Ford to be heard. I want her story told in a fair manner. She's been offered all sorts of opportunities in private, in public. They'll come to her. She doesn't have to ever go before a television camera. But her attorney has adopted a strategy. Obviously, it's called running out the clock. And by the way, the Republicans see it for what it is, to blame the GOP for not making proper accommodations when they have done just the opposite. It shouldn't surprise anyone that Republicans think this. After all, this lawyer, Deborah Katz, is highly partisan, longtime Democratic activist, tens of thousands of dollars in donation, clearly has a political agenda. Her views on sexual assault and misconduct allegations have been inconsistent, to put it mildly. Here are a few examples of what I mean. She said about Paula Jones, quote, her suit is very, very weak. She's alleged one incident that took place in a hotel room that, by her own testimony, lasted 10 to 12 minutes. She suffered no repercussions in the workplace. She then said of Jones' accusations, quote, clearly a one-time incident that took place in 10 to 12 minutes. She was not forced to have sex. She left of her own volition. The courts increasingly are finding that is not enough to create a sexually hostile work environment claim. Then she defended creepy Senator Al Franken. Context is relevant. Well, he did not do this as a member of the Senate. He did this in the capacity of someone who was still functioning as an entertainer. Excuse me, Al Franken was a senator when this, in fact, occurred. That's issue one. Issue two, we're going to talk about what it is Bill Clinton did to Paula Jones. He dropped his pants, exposed himself to a woman he didn't know, and said, kiss it. Now, Paula Jones won a settlement agreement, $850,000. But the point here is the lawyer, Professor Ford, well, clearly she has a political agenda, inconsistent views on this topic. The Daily Caller today uncovered that back in 2017, this same lawyer, she vowed to resist, get this, President Trump. Take a look for yourself.
Finally over the finish line, the new Attorney General this morning grateful to the colleagues who fought for him.
I can't express how appreciative I am for those of you who stood by me during this difficult time.
We will persist. It was a bitter feud to the very end.
We're going to fight back. We are going to resist. We will not be silent.
That's her resisting? Now, why does this attorney keep moving the goalpost for an interview? On Monday, Kat said Professor Ford would be willing to testify and do it publicly and under oath, then demands they continue changing all throughout the week, making it almost impossible for Professor Ford's allegation to be heard. She does deserve to be heard. And tonight, things have even gotten worse. Senator Feinstein, who's been delaying and obstructing, why hasn't Senator Feinstein turned over the full letter to Republican senators on the Judiciary Committee, like Grassley? Now, Feinstein knew about this allegation back in July. It's September. Senator Feinstein never bothered to raise any of these allegations with Judge Kavanaugh privately or in public hearings, even though there were numerous opportunities for her to do so. Instead, the Democrats, they've now turned this into a political circus. We saw it at the hearings. They have rushed to convict Judge Kavanaugh without even a hearing, not hearing either side of their story. And Dianne Feinstein took it to the next level tonight. After all the accommodations offered by the Republicans and Charles Grassley, and the president being accommodating on his end, saying he wants her to be heard. Well, it was entitled, by the way, Feinstein on Republican bullying of sexual assault survivor. Well, obviously, there's no point in her having a hearing. She's already decided who's guilty, who's believable, and who's not. They're offering to speak with her. And listen to what Democratic Senator Whitehouse had to say just yesterday. Listen to this.
If the Democrats win back the House and or the Senate, Democrats will investigate what happened, the charges that Professor Ford is laying out, even if that means investigating a Supreme Court justice at the time.
I am confident of that, and I think we'll also be investigating why the FBI stood down its background investigation when this came up in this particular background.
Another senator that's made up her mind is Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York. She said she believed Kavanaugh's accuser. She's made up her mind. Quote, denying Dr. Ford an FBI investigation is silencing her. No, the FBI, Senator, said it is not in their purview to have. There's no crimes within their jurisdiction. Forcing her, get this, forcing her into a sham hearing. Now, Senator Gillibrand made up her mind. She says it's silencing her to offer a hearing and pushing Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation through. If you allow in every single accommodation, private, not private, we'll go to you, you can come to us, moving the days and dates, and then the person doesn't want to talk. That was the right thing to do by the Republicans, but offering a platform to tell your story is not silencing somebody. And unfortunately, that's not all. Democrats are convicting Judge Kavanaugh before even any side has been heard. Forget about due process. Forget about the presumption of innocence. Take a look.
The Senate shouldn't simply rely on hearing two conflicting accounts and decide, well, we're okay with not knowing. We're okay with the fact that we might be putting someone who committed attempted rape on the Supreme Court of the United States.
I believe her. Listen, first of all, anybody who comes forward at this point to be prepared to testify in the United States Senate against someone who is being nominated to one of the most powerful positions in the United States government, that takes an extraordinary amount of courage.
Not only do women like Dr. Ford, who bravely comes forward, need to be heard, but they need to be believed. They need to be believed. I just want to say to the men of this country, just shut up and step up. Do the right thing.
Let me just say right at the outset, I believe Dr. Ford. I believe the survivor here. There's every reason to believe her. She has come forward courageously and bravely.
I believe her. I stand with her. And
do you hope
I don't
she shows up on Monday? Do you hope that she testifies?
I don't think she should be bullied into this scenario where it's a he said, she said. It's a sham hearing. And I don't think she should participate in it.
I believe Professor Ford. I think she's credible. And I think when the investigation is finished and when she testifies and Judge Kavanaugh testifies, I think a majority of senators will find her credible, and I never thought Kavanaugh should get appointed.
All of these Democrats say they believe her. They've already made up their minds. Interestingly, it's the Republicans that are being fair and open and offering opportunities for both sides to be heard. Could you imagine if Republicans came out one after another, they believe Judge Kavanaugh, they'd be eviscerated tonight. The double standard is so blatantly obvious. Where's all the outrage from the left about the allegations made against Democratic Congressman Keith Ellison this past month in August, accused of his girlfriend, longtime girlfriend, of repeated domestic and verbal abuse? This is the bottom line. What is happening right now is not fair to Professor Ford. It is not fair to Judge Kavanaugh. The allegations are serious. This shouldn't be about politics and rushing to judgment and no due process and no presumption of innocence. This should not be about hiding letters and lawyers not getting back to a Senate committee after so much accommodation. This should be about getting to the truth. And this should be about justice. This should be about putting good people on the Supreme Court. This is too serious an allegation, too serious an issue to be playing politics. Now the families of Judge Kavanaugh, Professor Ford, they're all receiving death threats, which needs to stop. Enough already. This is becoming a sick, twisted, ugly, partisan, one side cares about only one side, power. That's why in 46 days, this election matters on so many levels.